Hey guys, and welcome back to for StarCraft 2 Strategy, your number one location for step-by-step strategy and tutorial videos. Today we're going to be taking a look at how to stop a Baneling bust as Terran. Now, Baneling bust is a very prevalent strategy for Zerg players nowadays, and it's so well seen and it's so well done because of the fact that it's very strong. It's a very strong strategy. It works very well against Terran players. Basically what a Baneling bust is, if you are not aware, a Baneling bust is taking speedlings, as a Zerg player taking speedlings and building a Baneling's nest, bringing Banelings into the front of your Terran opponent's base and breaking through that frontal wall that almost all Terran players tend to do for Zerg because they need to, for the most part, to stop early game Zergling pressure. And basically once they bust through the wall, they're able to run rampant inside of your base, and typically, I mean, if they get Zerglings in your base early on and you don't have the frontal wall, chances are you're going to be pretty much crippled for the most part. So again, this is the counter to the Baneling bust, and what you're going to see here, what our strategy is and what we're intending to do. Our defense to this is twofold. The first defense that we're going to be looking at is by building a very strong frontal wall. Well, why would you build a weak frontal wall? Well, no one intentionally builds a weak frontal wall, but typically on a normal map you get a few supply depots and then one or two production buildings to block off your front wall. Well, what you want to do in the face of a Baneling bust is get more production buildings. Preferably you would wall this off with 3 production buildings. And the reason I'm showing this particular video on this map is because this is by far the most dangerous 1v1 map to be as a Terran player when facing a Baneling bust. This ramp here is so much larger than the average ramp in any 1v1. In fact, I believe it's almost twice as large. I'm not sure of exact dimensions, but it looks to be about twice as large as an average ramp. And that means, obviously, in turn, that you need twice as many buildings. So what you want to do is you want to fortify this with really hefty buildings. You want, instead of a bunch of supply depots, like typically with this one, if you were just going for a normal wall-off, there'd be 2 or 3 supply depots and then 1 or 2 production buildings. You really want to go with 2 or 3 production buildings and pretty much no supply depots. In fact, what we're going to see here is we're going to be getting a bunker here as well, so we can load in some units to try to shoot down some of the Banelings that come up for that attack. Now, we're going to take a look here at timing, because this, I think, is really important. I said the strategy for our defense against that Baneling bust is going to be twofold. The first part, again, is getting that strong frontal wall. Now, the second part is going to be teching very quickly, because what we're going to want to do is we're going to push out with some early game Hellions to try to push the Zerg player back, make him a little defensive, as well as we're going to be teching straight up to Banshees. That's basically a straight counter to the Zergling Baneling, since neither of them can attack air. I don't recall the last time that I saw a Zergling jump up in the sky and attack a battle cruiser or anything of the sort. Although I really do think it'd be interesting if there's some sort of mechanic to launch Banelings, but we won't go into that. So you're going to be teching up quickly. Aside from this frontal wall, you're going to be teching quickly, getting a starport very fast to try to get out Banshees as quickly as possible. So here we are with the Hellions again, trying to ward off some of this early game Zergling pressure that is likely to be coming. But as far as timing is concerned, what we're looking at here, this is actually really interesting. This is going to be a little bit different than our typical Terran opener. I'm going to go over the exact numbers right now. We start off with the 10 supply depot, as is per the usual, but instead of the usual 12 barracks, what we're actually going to be doing is after the supply depot, with our next 75 minerals, we're going to be getting a refinery. And then after that refinery, at our next 150 minerals, is when we get our barracks. But why are we getting the refinery earlier? Well, as soon as the refinery is up, you're going to want to saturate it. And what this is actually going to do for you is, by the time your barracks is done building, you're going to have 100 Vespian, and you should have enough minerals to make your factory right away. So the second the barracks is done building, you're going to make your factory. And once more, when your factory starts building, as soon as you possibly can, you want to attach a reactor to your barracks. And what's going to happen is, what you're going to see here is, once the factory is done, the reactor is going to be done building, and then you can lift off the factory, put it in the reactor spot to start pumping out those Hellions. Now, as soon as your factory is done building, you also want to start building your starport, get your tech lab on it, and start pumping out Banshees. So as you can see, we are bringing up some of these Hellions to try to do some early game damage. I didn't actually move over to see it, but we did roast a few Zerglings over here, so it was effective. We did manage to take out a few of those Zerglings. But the Baneling bust is still coming. Usually when a Zerg player goes for a Baneling bust, it is more or less all in, not in the sense that they basically have to forfeit if the Baneling bust doesn't go through, but the fact is that they end up spending so many resources on the bust, and it puts them so far behind in tech because they have to use Vespian to make these Banelings, which they just end up sacrificing. It puts them so far behind in the tech that if you have any sort of macro capabilities, you're going to be having some very high tech over them, and you should be able to take them out if the bust doesn't work. Now, as you can see, this has been our first bust here. It was successful. This just goes to show you how strong a Baneling bust can be, even with preparation for it, even with trying to wall off with these heavier buildings. They were still able to get through. Now, you want to make sure, a quick note, to replace this as soon as possible. You're going to be taking care of those Zerglings because you have that Banshee and a couple of Hellions, but you really want to place off this front wall because one Baneling bust is not the case usually. If someone's going for a Baneling bust, they're going to be relentless. They're going to keep coming at your wall. And a little bit of a mistake here by our Terran player. We want to make sure you repair these buildings after their first bust. Take 1 or 2 SCVs off the line, come over and repair these buildings, because this is actually going to be the reason that this falls. Had this been a full HP, those Banelings would not have taken this out. As you can see, the Banelings themselves didn't even take it out. It was still at about 20 hit points left after that bust. So yeah, definitely want to make sure you repair these buildings. Don't make that mistake if at all possible. He is still going to be okay because of these Hellions to take out these Zerglings, but so again, we're going for the straight counter with getting these quick Banshees, and this is exactly why. Because Banshees, if someone's going for a Baneling bust, once you fend it off, the Banshees are just going to run rampant through their base. Aside from the Queens, they're not going to have much to defend against it. And even with the Queens, you should have 2 to 3 Banshees in their base, and you should be able to take out a handful of Queens with that. If you do end up getting Cloak research, that's always beneficial as well. But keep in mind, if you're researching Cloak, that's also 1 less Banshee you're going to be able to get because you won't have the resources for it. So it's kind of a toss-up as to what you want to do. Again, they're not going to have much at all to attack the air, so you don't necessarily, when they're going for a Baneling bust, you don't necessarily need to have cloaking, because again, they're not going to have too much to attack those Banshees. And as you can see, we also went ahead and got a dropship out of our starport to get some Hellions in the back of his base to roast his mineral line. Zerg player's going for one last bust, trying to break through. It doesn't end up working. Our Banshees are able to take out the Banelings before they do anything. And yeah, guys, there you go. The Zerg player goes ahead and calls a good game, and so this has been a pretty strong counter to the Baneling bust. So again, going over things real quick, general strategy is to get this strong wall off and to tech up quickly, to get some Banshees out to counter this Baneling bust. Again, as far as numbers are concerned, a little bit of a variation from the standard Terran opening. We're going to be starting off with the 10 supply depot, and then instead of going for the 12 barracks, we're getting that refinery. Then we build our barracks. As soon as the barracks is done building, we can build our refinery, put a tech lab on your barracks. As soon as the factory's done building, switch the building so you can get some fast Hellions out really quick, and then build up your starport, get a tech lab, and start pumping out Banshees. Again, just make sure you reinforce this wall whenever they bust through, and you should pretty much win you the game. Again, it's really strong against the Baneling bust. So again, guys, this has been for StarCraft 2 Strategy, your #1 location for step-by-step strategy and tutorial videos. Please keep watching and keep owning.